Hello everyone, this is Damon with Pixnub Software. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to run a batch process in FaceCrop. Now before you start, you have to make sure all of the images are closed, and then in your filter menu, just select FaceCrop Run Batch. And very important, if you have not watched the video prior to this for how to create presets, make sure to watch that first. In that video, I created this yearbook and portrait preset, and it comes with 6 presets. But you're going to want to make your own. Those are really just starting points with these 6 in order to kind of get you started to making your own presets, because really you're going to want to fine tune these to your custom jobs that you are doing. This is pretty self-explanatory, so I'll just go through it pretty quickly. The source folder, I mean, it is what it says. It's the image that, or it's the folder that contains your images. And so I'll just select the folder. And then the same as source, if you have this checked, it's going to set this folder to whatever the source folder is. Since it's already set to that, it doesn't do anything when I uncheck it. But if I uncheck it, I could select a different folder if I wanted to and save in a different folder. But in this case, I don't want to. I'm just going to select same as source. And if you're saving in the source folder, it's going to make a subfolder under that. That way it's not going to overwrite the same images. Now with file name options, or not file name options, with file options, the source file to process, typically if you're shooting raw, you're converting those beforehand, so it's usually all except raw, but it does give you the option to process raw images or all images. And then output folder grouping. Before I select this, I'm just going to show you here. I'm going to select the presets. So you can select multiple presets by holding the Control key down or Command key on Mac and select as many as you want. Or you can hold the Shift key and select a range of those. And so I'm just going to select Portrait and Yearbook. And so this output folder grouping, if you select all in one folder, all of the crops it's going to make, it's going to put in the same folder. You can group those by preset, or you can group those by source images. I'm going to group by preset, and so what that's going to do, it's going to make a folder called Portrait, and all of the images that were cropped with that preset will be under that folder, and then a folder called Yearbook, so all of those crops will be under a folder called Yearbook. If I select Group by Source Image, for each individual image or for each image of a person you're cropping, it's going to make a folder for the person, and then under that folder is going to have all the crops of that same person, which typically that's going to give you a lot of folders, and that's not really what you want. I like to group by preset for something like this. It works pretty good. Save format, pretty straightforward. You can save as JPEG, PSD and JPEG, TIFF, or PNG. I'm just going to save as JPEG, and if you're on JPEG, you have your quality output. 12 is the highest. I'm going to save with 12. Now add preset to file name. If you have this checked on, it's going to save the file always with the original file name, but if this is checked, it's going to put an extension with the name of this preset. So you know, just by looking at the file name, which preset was made to make that crop. So for the additional options, the algorithm, you got a choice of face detection only or chin to top of subject. I discussed that in the prior 2 videos, the difference there, but typically, for school photos, I mean, pretty much you're always going to use chin to top of subject. There are times for other applications you would use face detection only, but almost always that's what you're going to use. So let's move on to the next, non-destructive crop. Now this is for PSD or TIFF only, and that's because the other formats don't support this. But what this is it's going to keep the off-canvas areas still available. So you can go back in and open the image after it's been cropped, and you can move the image, you can move it up a little bit, and you're not going to have that image floating. The pixels that were off canvas will still be there, so you can re-zoom or move the image, which typically you're not even going to need that very often anyway. The empty space fill. Now I discussed that in the prior video when I was making presets, and I showed what that does. But if it's at high visibility, that's going to give you that bright pink border around the areas of the image that are off canvas, and that's if you're shooting crop too close in camera and your settings in the preset are trying to make a wider crop than you shot in camera. It can't invent or create new pixels, so there's going to be empty space. And if it's set to transparency or white, when you're viewing that image in Windows Explorer or on your Mac in Finder, that's going to be against white, and that empty space, you're not going to be able to see if there's empty space in there. But when you go to print, it'll print that white space out. So in order to prevent that from happening, this high visibility puts a bright pink in there, so if you're scanning through your folder, you can easily see images that have empty space in there where the crop was wider than the camera crop. You can avoid this if you just shoot loose in camera and let the software do the work, because that's the whole purpose of the software anyway. Don't try to crop everything too tight in camera. Just let the software do the work. Shoot loose, and then you'll never have to worry about this. Now, the one thing with transparency, if you are cropping images that have been extracted, so if you shoot green screen and you extract the images before running through face crop, because it does support transparent images, make sure you don't have this set to white or high visibility, because that'll just be putting that into the background. So make sure to set that to transparency. So if your images come in with transparency cutouts, this has to be set to transparency. But I'm going to set it back to high visibility because these images are not cut out. And then face detection errors. So that's if it doesn't detect a face in an image, which is pretty rare. But in the case that does happen, you have the choice to not save the images or save with a solid high-vis color. If you save with a solid high-vis color, that is just going to save a bright pink image. It's just going to be a rectangle of bright pink. And the reason that's helpful is because if you run a folder of 1,000 images, and you might not notice that one doesn't get cropped because it didn't recognize the face. If you have it set to save that with high-vis solid color, you'll see that in Finder or in Windows Explorer, you'll see that bright pink image, and you know that you have to go back in and manually crop one image. Anyway, I just have these two selected. I'm going to hit Run Batch, and then we'll come look at these images once it's completed. All right, the batch process finished. So let's go ahead and take a look at our images. So you see that it made that subfolder because we're under the same source folder we're saving under, so it made a source folder called face crop. And then we've got our folder of portrait crops and our folder of yearbook crops. And so if you look at these, these are perfectly cropped to the specifications that we made. And you see that the top space above the bows and above the hair, it stays consistent with every single image. Just going to do a quick line. You can see this line running across it. And then the chins are all lined up as well too. So perfect on those. Let's go to the and the same thing here. You can see that it lined up the tops of those images, the top of the hair and the top of the bows perfectly. And then the chins are all lined up perfectly as well, so it did its job. So this is a really, really good way to make accurate crops. And like I mentioned in the other videos, Face Crop is the only software on the market that can account for the bows in the hair and then the tall hair compared to the short hair, and make that same exact top margin and align to that, because it uses the chin to top of subject algorithm that no other software that's available right now has, that I know of. So anyways, thanks for watching, and if you're interested at all in this program, please be sure to visit our website. That is facecrop.com.